Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the From Nothing Scratch Golf Podcast. Myself, Matthew Smart, and I'm here with Jonathan.
How's it going?
All good. So not done one of these in a little while. Obviously the situation's been a bit different lately, but still plenty to update on. And this is kind of going to be a bit of a summary of the challenge. In the whole of it, and then I've got a new little challenge that me and Jonathan have come up with, which I think people are going to be quite interested in because people have kind of asked maybe what I might do after. So I'll just get started with it. But how it started, if for those of you who might not have been following, it was me and Jonathan having a few drinks and deciding I wanted to give golf a go, but to put a challenge to it and set it for 2 years to try and get to scratch. I played a little bit with Jonathan and my dad. Obviously, Jonathan's been big into golf, being a pro before himself and now a caddy on tour, but never really got into it. So following him around so much, I was like, yeah, let's give this a real go. So Jonathan luckily has kind of helped guide me along the way a little bit, pointing me to coaches and then bits of coaching himself in terms of course management and everything. So yeah, I think maybe we can go over some highlights now. I don't know. I think a big one for you, John, you kept saying for me is when I broke 80 within a year.
Yeah, I think there's loads of highlights, and obviously, it's all been, especially this final year's been so weird with pandemic and everything. Now that's kind of changed how things have been able to go. But I think some of my earliest memories is I remember when you joined Chesterfield as your first place that you could play and kind of enter any competitions and stuff. And I think, obviously, as most people would, you think back to where you are now and you think back, there's some of my earliest memories about what we were trying to do and how different your golf game was. And, you were topping shots and losing lots of balls and, and you, just no real understanding of the game compared to where you're at now. Just simple little things, scoring and rules, and why you have certain clubs for certain shots, and just the real basic stuff you had to learn really quickly. And I think that's what I remember first of all is just those days at Chesterfield when you were playing. And I think from how far you've come from then is great. And I know you said breaking 80 in a year was one of the things that I said was ridiculous. I don't know if in the back of my head if I was really expecting you to be able to do that. And that was obviously a massive jump. And I'm not sure if some of the people have seen that course management video we did. That was back at your Chesterfield days. And, if you just said to me, you could shoot 12 over or 13 over, I'd have said that was unbelievable at the time. So to break 80 in your first year, I think was a massive achievement.
Yeah. I mean, that's the big thing from it as well. I think, like I say, I'd played golf before, but it was just like imitating what I thought to do. I had no understanding of all the stuff to do with a swing and not just a swing, like you say, like rules on how to play, picking up all those. I mean, there's still obviously things, it's like you see the pros asking stuff now for rules officials at times, but there's still little things. But yeah, it's kind of crazy looking back on how little I actually knew about the game, like you say, when I was at Chesterfield. But yeah, I suppose then people might be interested and kind of ask how I've got to this point. So if anyone's been following, I've got to 5.3 in terms of handicap. So category 1 golfer in the UK. Got best was 5.1, but past a couple of comps kind of just came up 0.1. And so on that point of how I've got there, I think it's a really strange question when people ask, and people are obviously wanting help with their own game. And I know I'm probably going to push this because it's more from your side as well, but the course management thing, like you said, that video that we did at Chesterfield, like now I still watch that back, and there's so much stuff from there that I think if you are a golfer that's particularly around, like, say, 15 handicap, it's just it's almost no-brainer stuff. You don't need to change your game. Like most people, maybe haven't got the time to do the challenge like I've done it and put all the practice sessions in maybe, but that course management stuff and understanding your own game, to me, seems like I knocked off, continuously I've knocked off, at the beginning probably like 5 shots, but now like, those odd, even 1 or 2 shots that counts. So I think when people ask me, that's a big thing. So, I mean, wherever you get your information from, obviously there's that course management video, but I think that's a big thing. Aside from then lessons, I was obviously, you pointing me towards Graham Walker. I had lessons with Callum as well at the beginning at Pete Cowan's place, and I was having that once a month and all the technical stuff, which it's just kind of putting that all together. All I can say about that is you just kind of got to trust it and work at it. I don't know if you thought I did anything different. To me, it just seems like I just play golf a little bit.
If you can get some good information, I think, and you go away and work on it, generally you should, unless you're not listening and not doing what you were told, you should get better. You were never looking for a quick fix. I think we talked about that a few times. It's never just watch something on YouTube and go, oh, right, okay, that'll get me down to 8 scratch, or that'll get me down to 10 or whatever. It was like, no, I've got to consistently do things well and consistently do things that I've been told to do, and I will get better in time. Now, obviously, we put a short-term time frame on it, but you could have easily wasted 6 months doing the wrong thing and I think you'll agree, is you went through spells where you just were playing and you weren't doing enough practice, and you'd have the few good scores, but you'd feel like you were hitting brick walls, and you can't get through that next barrier of handicap or scores or whatever without good practice alongside of it. And I think, like, you did, you went through spells where you were just playing, which there was nothing wrong with that because it was enjoyable and it was through the summer months and the weather was good and you've got to play. But I think a lot of people get caught up that if you really want to improve and you say you want to get from 10 to 5, okay, that's fine, but you'll not do it just playing golf. You will have to go away and maybe get some information from a coach, but then once you got that information, stick with it and practice hard. And it doesn't have to be ridiculous hours. It just has to be consistent and go, okay, every 3 days I'm going to do, I don't know, an hour and a half at what I've been told to do. If you can stay consistent, you will get better. But if you think it's going to be, I go and see a coach and I have that lesson and I maybe do 45 minutes at the range before I play on Saturday and my scoring is just dramatically going to come down on Saturday, I think you're being a bit delusional personally. But it might work. It might. You might be fortunate and you might have got that ability to do that. But I think over the long run, I don't see how that works.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, now you mentioned this, it's kind of bringing a lot of things to my mind. But when people have asked me, and a lot of people say, "Oh, I don't have time to, practice," and that sometimes when I'm playing with that person, I'm like, "Well, we're on the golf course for 4 hours at the minute." This is the thing where it becomes: do you actually want to get better, or do you just want to enjoy the game and play it on the course? Which obviously, great, both. If that is, but you can't then expect maybe to get too much better if you're just going to go on the course. But there's always definitely the time. You know, if you've got time to play golf at all, you've got more free time than a lot of people probably.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, and then like back to that coaching and having lessons, like there was a point the end of like last season, I don't know if you remember, where I was playing I was trying to play every competition, but you know, to get my handicap down, because I've got this short time frame on it. But equally, I was having lessons, and at that point, changing something what felt fairly drastic or a big move to me. Now, from looking back on it and trying to scrape little bits here and there, I probably shouldn't have played competitions there, because my handicap was only going to really, I wasn't going to score well. I was doing the right thing by sticking to what I was, learning in my lessons and not trying to go back to what I was doing before. So I think swing wise, sticking to what I was supposed to be doing was a good thing. But it didn't help my handicap. And that's just kind of that example of like, you know, most people will then go for a lesson, say it feels weird, which is probably something we could talk about as well, and then go on the course and go, oh no, that feels weird, so I'm going to go back to what I normally do anyway. I mean,
Well, yeah, if you're on a course of 4 hours and you're expecting to make a change, you might hit 45 to 50 shots that aren't putting. Right, of those how many are off a perfect lie in the fairway or off a tee? You know, you might be down to 30 shots, maybe a bit more, maybe 35 shots. Well, that takes you 4 hours to hit 35 shots. You can go to the range in 45 minutes. If you really took your time and worked through your drills, you could hit 60 balls. You know, you're going to get more done in an hour at a range. So when you are making your changes, just understand that it might be best to start off overall at the range than it is just going on the course trying to make those changes. Because also when you're on the course, you're going to react to targets. So although you might think you're doing the move as well as you can, still in the back of your mind, you're trying to hit it where you want and you're going to revert to tight. Whereas on the range, if you hit a bad shot and it goes way offline, who cares? But as long as you know that you're working on your swing, you're trying to do the things you've been told to do. There's some of the pitfalls of it, but it's not easy to get right. I think, you know, plenty of people, you've got to remember you still play the game for enjoyment. And if the weather's good and you want to go and enjoy a round of golf instead of go to the range, I don't blame you. Go and enjoy a round of golf. But just understand there's time for each. It depends what you want from it.
Yeah. And then I think with the range session, like obviously I've tried to put a few drills on there that you've given me, and there's a few on YouTube, but I've got a lot more, which now maybe I'll have more time to kind of post about. But it's about that performance drills as well, which I think most people, I don't really, you know, being surrounded more by golf now, I don't see much of that. I don't see much performance drills like what you've kind of pointed me towards doing, where it's going to the range and yeah, you do your technical bit, like, you know, you've got me practicing my technical bit, but then actually looking, okay, now performance wise, how is this working? And, you know, there's ways of doing that on the range. Again, little stuff we do, but picking out a target and understanding where your misses are, and then that's something you can use on the course. So I think that's also then a key point to pick out is performance related practice rather than just hitting balls.
Yesterday when we spoke, like, you could have been stricter with the stats and maybe doing some more performance stuff at the range. Like, you could have had a lot more understanding of your game, and maybe would that have eaten up another couple of shots in a round, or maybe one shot? Then all of a sudden, it's well worth it. You know, you can look back at any challenge and every person that tries to do anything. It's easy to look back and go, I could have done that a bit better. I could have done that a bit better. And you just think, well, what could I have done? And I think those performance things that's the hardest thing in golf is being honest and understanding your own game. And I think once you do that, you can save shots really easy with just that little bit of understanding of what you can and can't do, and not trying to take things on that don't match your golf game.
Yeah, 100%. And then that kind of now, leads on to maybe where I feel like I could have improved. So maybe I'll point out things, you might see it differently. But one thing I'd say is, this will actually link to the end bit with a kind of update, but kind of fitness wise and things like that, I've not been as strict with that. I do my general fitness anyway. I'm quite fit and run and things like that. But the golf specific stuff, which I've done some of, again, if I'm being strict, I could have done a bit better with that. The stat stuff, as you just mentioned, so it kind of the more detailed stats came a bit later as we found, this app with the golf stats coach. But with that taking up a bit of time to enter after each round, there were times when I haven't entered it. And for that to be accurate, you need to enter every round, like good and bad. It wasn't that I was just missing bad ones or just missing good ones, or just sometimes we're missing them. So when we then look at practice, because that golf stats app, I just, I really find that brilliant to figure out exactly what to be working on. There's so many times when it took me a while to realise at first, because you mentioned, but I was talking through a round and what I thought was bad, and then doing the stats and going, oh wait, no, that's not where I was losing most of the shots. And then you look back and maybe figure it out. But like putting, I think, is a brilliant one. Most people maybe count how many putts they have per round and judge that on whether they were good at putting or not. There's so many rounds where I've had 30 putts, which some people might say, yeah, that's all right, there or thereabouts for someone at my handicap. But actually, my putting was horrendous. It was just that I was missing greens and putting close, so maybe getting some from short range, or not getting them from short range, but it was still just 2 putts and things. So yeah, I think there are a couple of weaknesses I probably saw. I don't know what you thought, if you got any other.
Yeah, 100%. I think just that little understanding and trying. But I mean, I think there's little areas you could have picked up on, and you could have had that understanding. And stats, I think, is a massive one. I think looking back now, you understand why, even if it's a shit round or it takes a little while, it might take 20 minutes. That information is so valuable, and you start to see patterns. And all you need is a few patterns, and then you can start plotting your way around a golf course a little bit easier. So I think that would have been somewhere you could have edged it out, just maybe an extra shot or something. But I thought the big one for me was the iron play. The iron play was very up and down for some reason. That'd go very in and out. I think through the whole sort of challenge, you seem to, especially from about 4 months in, you seem to drive it really well. I think you drove it. You never really used to come off and say, "Oh, I didn't drive it very well." And especially towards the end, you got that new driver in there, and that really seemed to improve. But the iron play, I thought, is something that could have just save shots. Simple 9-irons into a green, and I know you missed a lot of greens with 9-irons and stuff. I think that's an area that really could have kind of saved a lot of shots really simply. I think you're naturally quite a good putter. For whatever reason, even from the start of the challenge, you were a good putter. That again had peaks and troughs, but I'd say that about any player I know. Any top tour pro, they go through spells where they're putting well and spells where they're not putting great. But I think the biggest highlight for me was when you played the club championships and you got your game to where you shot. Was it 5 over 5 over 2 rounds in a row?
Yeah. Off the black tees as well.
Yeah, off the back tee. That's when I thought, yeah, you've built a really, really consistent golf game where you can go out on the biggest competition of your club, and shoot 2 rounds, round after round, and that's when I thought, okay, you've got a golf game that's consistent. Okay, you've not got down to scratch, but in 2 years you got down to a Category 1 golfer, and you can properly play golf. It's not like you've just had some one-off rounds. You can do it over and over again. So we talk about pinching some shots here and there, and I'm sure we could have, but I think overall, as a challenge, you've done well to even get where you got to in such a short space of time. But I think that club championship for me was the telltale that you've built a golf game that's very, very consistent.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think it's been. I mean, I've said to you, it's been hard for me to see it, probably because I'm doing it, but I'm not really appreciated where I have done well, and maybe that I have got to a fairly decent, standard in that time, just because I'm being self-critical and I'm always trying to push. But I do think like stuff like that, club champs, and now we mentioned the other day, I just feel like I can go to any course, play it and play at a good standard, even if I stop for a while. I know that I might not play it all perfect like most don't, but I can play some good holes and I can get round. I know how to get round a course.
You can enjoy a golf course because you can hit some great shots. You can hit some memorable shots, and on your day you're going to put a good score together.
Yeah, and then that with the iron play, like you say, that's definitely been. I mean, it shows it in the stats as well, but just approach play has been by far the weakest point. And the thing with that though is that's then the area where I see, well, that could get massively better. Like that could really improve. So that's why I feel like I could also be better. Like I'm not really satisfied with 5. Obviously 5's good. We can say that. Like, and other people have said, get into Category 1, and I appreciate that is like a good standard. But obviously, from my point of view, I was aiming to get scratch, even though it was a big ask in 2 years. But knowing there's areas that I can, obviously there's areas I can improve. I'm not pro standard, but there's areas that I can really, not easily, but with practice, improve quite a bit. I feel like I've definitely got a par or under par round within me if I can just get that together. So and then probably get on to the next little update. So first, this will give it away, but we've talked before about one of the things I didn't try to do towards the end when it was all about performance and just trying to score, was trying to eke out that extra bit of distance, which is obviously a big topic at the minute. I don't think anyone stopped talking about it. But I wasn't trying to do that because, like we've said, to get to scratch, I don't need to hit it any further. I don't hit it a long way, but for a club golfer, it's there or thereabouts, and it was enough to get around a course in scratch. Like we said, I don't need any more distance. But now you've come up with this challenge. So, well, I'll let you tell everyone what it is.
I don't know if it's just me using you as a guinea pig, but
I think that is it. But I like it.
I think this is one I'm really interested in. Obviously, being on tour, you see guys come out that are long, and I mean seriously long. And then you've got Bryson that's come along. Now, for anyone that knocks Bryson, I find it hard for people who knock Bryson because this guy's gone away. He's took time out. He's changed his body, massively changed his body. And he's really understood through everything that he does, whether he's changed the degree on the driver, the loft on the driver, he's changed the length of the driver shaft. He's then set about swinging it faster, but also to do what's amazing about what he's done is he's still hitting it as straight. And obviously he's worked out statistically, he is better off hitting it way further down there because he is going to gain more on the field. But anyway, that's about stats and everything like that. But I think it's a really interesting thing in golf, and it is changing golf. But all I really think he's done is, I think he's just understood the benefits of different areas of the game to score better. I don't think he's changed how the game's played. I think he's just understood, right, if years ago people had understood there was this bigger advantage to hitting it this much further, people would have always gone looking for it. But we were under the impression that, I remember being told through coaching, like, oh, you've got to lay up to a certain number and you've got to do this and you've got to play to this area and you've got to play to that area. Well, that was just how people at that time understood the game to be and thought that was the best way to be. He's flipped that on its head and he's looked at all the stats, he's looked at everything, and he's gone away and put some serious distance on. So, obviously, the challenge we've discussed is maybe not to do with scoring, but I think it's still an impressive challenge if you manage to do it. Is going from where your swing speed is now to, in 6 months' time, trying to get it to 120 mile an hour. Now, 120 mile an hour, generally, if you strike it pretty decent, will fly it over 300 yards. Now, I know that's by no means anywhere near Bryson, but from where you're currently at, is probably a good, 50 yard difference, if not more, maybe. And obviously we've spoke about you're going to go and see Lee Cox and see it, and but I'm really interested. I think, to put that amount of speed on is ridiculous. It would be absolutely ridiculous, and just like the From Nothing to Scratch challenge, it's going to be really, really hard. But I think how you said about it and what you need to do to get there is going to be really, really interesting. And I think with how the game's going, I think hopefully people see the value in learning how you do it and seeing if it's possible.
Yeah. So I put a post on my Instagram stories the other day, if any of you saw, with my swing, and asked you what you thought my swing speed was. And then use the Flight Scope Mevo, which is brilliant that I'm using that as well at the minute, because that's going to really help with this challenge as well. And my swing speed at the moment is basically about 100. So I had a few kind of 98 and 92. 102 is about max really for me. So I'm not particularly fast by any means. That natural speed is maybe not really there. So it's going from around 100 to 120. That's club head speed. And you said also, obviously, you described that's kind of like 300 yards, but roughly you said it's like, was it 3 yards per mile per hour?
Yeah, about 2 to 3 yards per mile per hour club head speed.
So, and as Jonathan mentioned, I got my first lesson with Lee Cox. So he teaches some of the best long drive champions as well. And now I'm down south and a bit closer to him, so that's worked out as well. So yeah, that's going to be a new one. It's going to also be good because, I'm not a professional golfer, so I've not got all the time in the world, and this has took up quite a lot of time, spending 4 hours on the golf course to get my score down. And not that this won't take up time, but I should be able to manage it a little bit better because it can spend it in more like hour slots, kind of on the range or gym stuff I'm going to have to do and things like that. And hopefully COVID shouldn't, touch wood, mess it up too much. Because, so we didn't quite finish with the other challenge, summing that up. But basically, if you hadn't been following it should have ended kind of at the end of July. But COVID happened, so I had no competition, so I couldn't get the handicap down, so I just couldn't play. So before that, I should have had 23 competitions left. So I gave myself 23 competitions. I've now got 5 left. And now my golf club has said that they've scrapped the last three weeks of competitions because they're doing some maintenance work. So I can't play them. I can't join a club down here. So it is what it is. Worst things have happened through COVID. But just kind of calling an end to that. Pretty much there anyway with completing it. And on to this next one. Because some people have also mentioned, I could just carry it on for another year. But I feel like it wasn't really the challenge that we set out then. You could just keep dragging it on, and then it's just me playing golf, really, trying to get down. But so yeah, I'm excited about this though, and like you said, I'm probably your guinea pig because you want to know what's going to happen.
I think it's really interesting. I think, like I've already warned you, that if you start going looking for this distance, and this is the reason we didn't do it through the From Nothing to Scratch challenge, is your golf game could go back a little bit.
Yeah.
It might not. You might really start to be, because obviously, if you're swinging it 10 mile an hour faster where you are, you don't understand how to control that speed. That's what's so impressive about Bryson is he's added all this speed on, and he's still managing to hit it straight. So I mean, that takes some serious skill to control that much speed. So you're gonna go through all those challenges, but the challenge is not about getting down to scratch now. It's about, can you swing it over 120 mile an hour? And I think you've got to fly it over 300 yards. And I think if you can do that in 6 months from where you're currently at, yeah, I want to know how you do it.
Yeah, because obviously I spoke to Lee briefly and said what the kind of rough plan was. Asked him if he thought it was viable, because he said getting up to 110, he said definitely can do that. At 120, he says will be a stretch, but should hopefully maybe be achievable, which is good, because I want it like the scratch in 2 years. I want it to be something that's a little bit maybe out of reach.
Yeah.
I don't know I don't really know whether it is or not. Like you say, that 120 mile an hour, I don't know what it'll feel like or anything. So we'll just see, I suppose. But yeah, it'd be interesting.
Yeah.
So
go to bombs.
Some bombs. Yeah, it'll look good on Instagram either way, won't it? So yeah, that's that. So yeah, thanks for coming on again, John, and all your help. And yeah, thanks everyone else for following along, and hopefully you'll get something out of this. And if anyone's trying to add a little bit more speed, get a bit more distance, hopefully I'll have a few little pointers along the way. So cheers, guys. See you later.